Apple recently released a study which implies that large reasoning models are fake and there's no such thing as thinking capability of AI models, and this has taken internet by storm. TLDR of what Apple actually did in this study is that they have critiqued the conventional evaluation methods of these large language models. Apple says that there can be contaminations in the data which ends up skewing the performance metrics.
Also, these benchmarks only focused on final accuracy regardless of the reasoning traces that led to that solution. Motivation behind the study was to see if models actually had thinking capabilities or were just doing pattern memorization. I'm going to try and solve the puzzle Tower of Hanoi as we talk. This is one of the games that Apple made these models play in a sandbox environment.
These models were actually restrained from external knowledge retrieval, code execution, using calculators or internet searches, intensifying the difficulty and mimicking a strict test-taking environment.
Problems like Tower of Hanoi, River Crossing, or Checker games are actually custom-made. It's like an unseen question paper to avoid memorization of pattern.
Here's what Apple found out. Beyond certain complexity, accuracy collapsed completely. At lower complexity levels, we did not need reasoning models at all. We were doing just fine without them. At medium, we saw a fairly good result with reasoning models as compared to large language models. But when problem complexity surpassed a certain threshold, performance didn't merely decline. It plummeted to zero. As the puzzle became more difficult, the AI model actually started expending less and less effort in thinking phase, as measured by the inference token usage. Another counterintuitive finding was decreased thinking effort with increased difficulty. This suggests that instead of trying harder or suggesting more paths when confronted with a difficult problem, the model effectively gives up or becomes very inefficient in their exploration, fixating on an early wrong answer and just wasting the remaining token budget. This is unlike human behavior, where when the difficulty level increases, humans tend to pour more strain on their minds and think harder. Another big concern was that these models, when they failed, were given a set of instructions which they were told to follow, but they were not able to explicitly follow those steps, which demonstrates that reasoning models are not executing logically in a procedural manner, but they're rather trying to predict the next token based on their learned patterns. The underlying mechanism of these models seem to be of statistical approximation rather than logical deduction. The claim that the paper makes is innovation is not memorization.
But here's my take. Of course, statistical models struggles with completely novel problems that they have never seen. Apple simply used chain of thought prompting to trace reasoning.
It also did not use the latest tool, Anthropic's reasoning trace framework, which helps track LLM's reasoning process.
Also, Apple deliberately used smaller models. They did not use OpenAI's Frontier Model O3. They did not use Gemini's 2.5 Pro. Instead, they used Claude Sonnet, Gemini, DeepSeek R1, and OpenAI's O3 Mini.
Let's not forget that how good these models are in demonstrating remarkable in-context reflection and self-correction. They show genuine problem-solving improvements on real-world tasks. Also, Apple is still struggling to make Siri useful and is now positioning itself as the authority on what constitutes real reasoning. I agree that this research might have given us something to think about, but it certainly does not disapprove the reasoning in AI LLMs. What do you think? Share in the comments.